Chapter 14, Joyland. When I was a toddler, preschooler, and schoolgirl, my father would take me walking with him. This Sunday event continued until I was in high school. My earliest recollection of these Sunday outings was in Seattle. We walked into a barn-like structure on a wharf jutting out into the Sound. I clearly remember as we entered the building being terrified of a monstrous thing hanging overhead and waving many wicked arms. Years later, as an adult, when I told my father of the memory, he sharply replied, "You were only 2.5. You can't remember that far back. The thing you saw was a stuffed giant octopus hanging overhead at the entrance to a marine museum." When I was 4 or 5, our walks were both frightening and fun. Frightening because there were Indians walking about the streets, perhaps begging. The Indian women usually were sitting on the sidewalk, a boardwalk in these very early 20th century days. I clasped tightly my father's hand, for he had on numerous occasions warned me that if I misbehaved, he would give me to Siwash, an Indian woman. Adding fuel to the fire of my fear of Indians was seeing the Buffalo Bill Cody Wild West show. Following Cody into the arena were a large number of Indians in war paint and dress, holding aloft wicked-looking spears. They were riding bareback, their ponies galloping at full tilt as the Indians screeched. The Indians terrified me. In the first grade at Gatewood Elementary School in Alki Point, my fear was somewhat abated. One of our circle songs was an action piece. We children sang, "Come, let's play, we're Indians, way out in the west. I will be the chief because I'm braver than the rest." Then we all shouted, "Ah!" with our hands moving back and forth on our lips, making Indian war cries, we thought. My, how my feelings about Indians have changed. As a toddler reflecting the prejudice of the day, I was terrified of any Indian. Now, as an adult, I know through the guidance of a fine teacher, I learned that Indians were good people with a different language and way of life. A number of the big bands played in Dunsmuir at a huge dance hall called Joyland. I believe it stood where the swimming pool is now. In the 20s and 30s, big bands toured the country. Ted Fioriato, Vince Lombardi, Tommy Dorsey, to name a few. Live bands and real dancing were very, very much the thing in those days. For these affairs, people came from all over the county, and everyone dressed up. Ladies would buy a new evening gown and have their hair dressed for the big night. The men wore suits and ties. The music was beautiful. The bands played loud and clear, and the rhythms beckoned us. The dance floor was a sea of movement and color. The scene was almost hypnotic in sound and sight. It was really just a dance hall. But when the music played and everyone danced, it became a special place. It became Joyland. My life has been so busy, so full, so challenging, that I never really delved into my memories until I wrote this book. Now, wandering through those memories, it seems that I must be a bit of a romantic. When I'm in a special mood, in a twinkling moment, Burton is very close to me, holding my hand, and we are in Joyland. Twinkling lights, Harry James' big band. Burton, handsome in suit and tie, leading me onto the dance floor, the magic carpet. With his chin set in his own confident way and me firmly in his arms, we swing into the rhythms of the band, fox-trotting, two-stepping, waltzing, spinning, gliding. What a dancer Burton was, making me feel like the belle of the ball. Another dip, glide. I am a young girl at her first prom on cloud 9 with my man, the one and only love of my life. At home, we had a crocineau board, rather like a pool table in miniature. Donut-shaped game pieces called taws, about an inch across, were used instead of balls. The rules for the game were just like those for a pool, or as Burton insisted, billiards game. I was very good at this game and defeated all challengers. However, I never played billiards. While Mother and Father played whist or pedro, we children loved to play pit or hearts. We would get so excited over a game that Sarah in her sleep would cry out, "Corner on rye! Corner on rye!" The first dance I was allowed to attend was as a junior at the university. The affair was given by Alpha Mu, the Music Honor Society of which I was a member. That same year, I was permitted to go to a concert escorted by a young man. For the senior prom held in San Francisco at the Fairmont Hotel, I was escorted by a young man, not a boyfriend, for I had none, who'd been asked to take me by his sister, a fellow member of Alpha Mu. For this very special affair, Mother made me dress in the height of the 20s flapper style. A shift, it might be called. It was pink silk with a fine inch-wide band of gold lace applique from neckline to the knee-length bottom of the dress. During my graduate year, Sarah and I went with 2 men, students of Orly C, to have a full day of fun at Santa Cruz Beach. Also, at evenings with some of my Alpha Mu friends, I learned to Charleston. I was pretty good, too. In thinking of the train, I always remember Burton's flat-footed statement, "No one needs an automobile in town. There's not a place where you can't walk." Burton, as a Southern Pacific employee, had a railroad pass for him and his family, so on occasions we would ride to the city, San Francisco. There, as Burton insisted, is public transportation and you don't need a car. Every 2 or 3 weeks, Burton went to the city to play billiards with the expert players. The train left Dunsmuir, in those long ago days when passenger travel was very important to the railroad, at dinner time about 6:30 p.m. Anyone going to San Francisco put on his best bib and tucker. Once the train was on its way, we went to the dining car to have a 4 or 5 course dinner served by gifted white-clothed waiters. The meal, served on white tablecloths and napkins, ended with the waiter, having cleared your place, brought you silver finger bowls full of warm water. One time when the train was passing Castella and heading north at 6:30 a.m., all the children were asleep. Burton woke Bobby and put on his coat and cap. He then wakened Alice Jane and helped her to put on her coat. Then, turning to Bobby, saw that he had taken off his coat and was sound asleep. This time, after putting on the coat, he stayed with Bobby. When we stepped off the train, we were out in the cold, frosty air. Everyone loved to go dancing. So, a group of my friends, the Sewing Club, came up with the idea of a dance club which we dubbed the Merrymakers. It met monthly in the Masonic Temple. The maple room resounded to the footsteps of couples swinging and swaying to the live music of the Hottentots under the direction of Sam Mazzei. 1/3 of the membership provided a midnight supper, served and cleaned up after the dance. Then World War II. Pearl Harbor put an end to the Merrymakers. During those years, 1941 to 1945, all fun activities were war effort-oriented. Oh, yes, we played cards. Whist was going out of fashion, but bridge became popular. There were elegant bridge parties. At several of them, Eleanor invited me to co-hostess with her, a great learning experience for me in social graces. I vividly recall a hobo party. Our dinner was wrapped up in railroad scarves and carried on the small branch of a tree. In the 40s, the Southern Pacific sponsored Railroad Days, Dunsmuir's annual celebration. Back then, it was a really big event. For it, the SP sent its Rod and Gun Club, its marching band, its mixed chorus. The parade was a spectacular event with decorated floats, marching bands, clowns, many of them and all different, always led by the American Legion flag and drum corps. The marshal of the parade was usually a famous person, so when Burton and I were asked to be the Railroad Days marshal, we were stunned and quite excited. Burton wore the new sweater that his sister Phyllis had knit for him. The highlight of our centennial celebration was the giant parade in which, as Grand Marshal, I rode. No convertible this time, a horse-drawn carriage pulled by 2 matching horses. Their owner in black suit and high hat controlled the reins. Dressed in my grand centennial ball gown, accompanied by Mildred and Jim Lockhart, I was both proud and just a little shy as we caught everyone's eye. Dobie, was the name of my ladylike miniature poodle. She adopted me when she was 3. For 13 years, she was my devoted companion. Almost every day, my fluffy Dobie and I would stroll down Beverly Way, not much wider than a country lane, while further up above us on the side of the canyon, the I-5 traffic raced by. One afternoon, not far from home, out of the shrubs that covered the embankment came a beautiful white Angora cat. She came right up to Dobie. They rubbed noses, believe it or not. The cat rubbed against my leg, and then we proceeded down the trail like 3 dear friends. Suddenly, the cat disappeared into the shrubs. 1 or 2 days later, Snow White joined us for another walk together. Dobie, me, Snow White. That, sad to say, was the last time we saw our Snow White. I was invited by friends to take tea with them at Miss Lynn's Tea. It is located in Montague, a bit of a town from the past far north in California. As you enter the town, all the buildings, like stage sets, are on one side of the street facing the railroad tracks. A short distance north stood a brick building, and in the front a sign proclaimed Miss Lynn's Tea. My friends and I entered to discover we were in another world, a Victorian parlor and dining room. Moving about this tea house, I came across hat racks offering many styles and colors, fun chapeaux for men and women. When I found a hat, large and red, that fit my spirits, I put it on. Suddenly, as if by magic, this hat had taken me out of myself, leaving behind any worries I might have had. And the same thing happened to my friends. Our concocted outfits guaranteed merriment and laughter. Steaming hot pots of tea were delivered, and we had a wonderful time enjoying the tea, the environment, and each other. On another visit, I took Bob and Nancy, and this time I had ordered the Queen's tea. Once we had found hats, we settled in a table. This special tea offered 3 courses: soup or salad, small sandwiches and crumpets, and finally, desserts. Of course, this was along with the tea of our choice. It was quite a wonderful repast. While we were enjoying this, a little girl, like a tiny fairy, appeared at our table. She was at ease and visited with us. In response to our inquiries, she told us that her name was Hannah and that she was 5 years old. She noticed that the tea in my cup was low, so she politely asked if I wanted more. Then, in amazement, I watched as Hannah carefully removed the cozy. Taking it from a little pot holder, she put it on her hand, while Mother, Miss Lynn, watched approvingly. She adeptly poured my tea. A bit later, Hannah, looking right at me, inquired of Bob, "How old is Reba?" He responded, 101. There was a brief pause, and then she exclaimed knowingly, "Dalmatians!" Hannah giggled and clapped her hands. She moved away like a butterfly. We returned our festive hats and then felt the real world beginning to settle in. Miss Lynn opened the door and we stepped onto the street. Before we entered the car, we turned and waved to Miss Lynn and her magical tea house. As I said in my essay, life is not unlike climbing a mountain. In the excitement, exhilaration of reaching the top, and too preoccupied with the problems of descending from this lofty peak, I forgot to sign my name to the register. The register is a book kept in a metal box on the peak of the mountain. Successful climbers enter their names and dates to verify their climbs. Even though the climb was a metaphor, the register was that edge of reality. Sometime later, my friend Ken climbed to the top of Mount Shasta, pinnacle of the world. He raised both arms, signifying victory. Then he turned and added his name to the official book securely kept there. Forthright, he did what I had forgotten to do. He put my name in the register. So in spirit, I was there, real time, on top of the mountain. In 1960, I decided to attend summer school at Columbia University in New York City, since my son was a full-time student there. When I arrived, I'd been assigned a room in a 3-story women's dormitory, which was part of Barnard College. I lodged and had most of my meals there. The dining room on the ground floor had bars at the windows. As we ate, especially at dinner, scrubby street urchins would climb up and cavort. Never before had I ever seen anything like that. On Sundays, I attended Riverside Church, a Rockefeller copy of a Gothic cathedral from France, and it was a beautiful and inspirational experience. While Bob was working on his postgraduate degree and had a part-time summer job on Wall Street, we were able to see each other as often as possible. We did see West Side Story, an unforgettable experience. As the summer session began, we arranged that at 5 p.m. on workdays he would phone me. Each floor had but one telephone. My room was at the end of the long hall. I soon learned that I was the only white woman on that floor. The registrar must have looked at the name Coon and assigned me to that floor. One evening, as per our schedule, the phone rang. A young black lady hurried to answer it. I was coming from my room and heard her call out, "Is there a coon in the hall?" My heart beat in rhythm with the drums. I hummed along with the saxophones. I swayed, feet tapped, hands marked each beat at Tuxedo Junction. Trumpets brought tickles to my back. How I wanted to dance. To my inner self, I tried to reason to no avail. I was in my late 90s, but my whole body moved with the music. As the band began a waltz, Ken, a good friend, leaned toward me and smilingly said, "Let's dance." More than anything, I wanted to. I stifled my desire, fearing the bad leg might act up. The yearning, the intense desire made my whole body tingle, felt every beat of the music. Sometime later, when the band began a slow number, Ken again smiled at me, nodding toward the floor. This time I nodded yes. My escort helped me to my feet, and then Ken took over. I relaxed, feeling certain that his strong arms would never let me fall. I felt the beat. We moved as one to the rhythm of the band, the purring saxophones, the rat-a-tat-tat of the drums, the singer. I am dancing, really dancing. I was flushed with excitement. We were the only ones on the floor. Everyone was watching us, feeling the thrill with me. Too soon the music stopped. The dance was over. While still in his arms, I gave him a warm European kiss. Impossible to express on paper or in words how breathlessly thrilled I was, body and soul. I danced once more. Little old lady dancing by, catching everyone's eye. Our Sunday outings were somewhat different after we moved to Oakland in 1912. Mother made a luscious picnic lunch, and all of us rode the streetcar to the end of the line in Berkeley. In those days, the hills, which are now completely covered with homes, were then fields of tall grasses. The winds and breezes were the choreographers there as the grass moved and undulated across the hill in a lovely kind of dance that never seemed to stop. In the spring, among the grass, were hundreds of California golden poppies and sky blue lupines. When we took the streetcar for home, our arms were full of wildflowers. It was wonderful to see our home etched with spots of gold and blue color, but it is the memory, both then and now, of the grasses on the hills and their beautiful ongoing movement that remains, and it is still a joy to reflect on that dance of the grasses in my inner eye. The shuttle moves, and the loom purrs as these last few delicate threads are knit into place. Over, under, so quietly it moves. Shh. One more pass. Shh. And back. And then it is still and quiet.